Today I wanted to do something slightly different, as I'm going to review Solo, but I will not be scripted at all throughout this video. Normally on the YouTube channel, I'm more explanatory, but in this video, I will attempt to give you my full, unbiased thoughts on this film, despite being a huge Star Wars fan. I'm going to tell you exactly what I loved about the movie and stuff that didn't quite land with me. Of course, as you guys can tell, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, but there are definitely parts in this movie that really didn't feel Star Wars to me. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy the movie and didn't have a great time, as I certainly did. I just feel like there are certain parts of a Star Wars film that should be in the movie. With all of that said, this video will be full of spoilers, as I feel like I can't accurately talk about the film without addressing it piece by piece. Ultimately, if you haven't seen the film, I definitely recommend you do so, as there are a lot of cool story points and lore expansions that I absolutely loved. However, the film is not perfect. In the end though, if you are on the fence, ultimately I would say go see it. Now, let's get right into the spoilers. To begin, I liked the opening, but I felt it took a little too long to get going. Han as well as Qi'ra running scams for the Pike is an interesting way to start the story of Han Solo. I also like the little added touch later in the film that Han's father worked on a ship like the Millennium Falcon. This makes sense as to why Han has such a deep connection with that ship. Although of course the Falcon is different, I felt like this is a touch in the film that I absolutely adored and makes a lot of sense as to why the Falcon is so precious to Han. With that said, I didn't really buy the chemistry between Han Solo and Qi'ra over the film, and of course it's an unfair comparison, but later on, Han and Leia really has always hit home for me. With that said, I really didn't see Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo throughout the film. Although he did have moments where he was absolutely Han Solo, there were also, for the majority, I really didn't see it. I don't think that he did a bad job acting wise, I just don't think that the character that we saw on screen was actually Han. I really like the added touch of Han being a member of the Empire for what we know now is 3 years, and that he was kicked out of the Flight Academy for having a mind of his own. I wish we could have seen more time with Han as an Imperial, as I think that there are some very compelling stories to be told there. Just as Han deserts the Empire and wants to become a smuggler and is thrown in a cage with the Beast, being Chewbacca, this is also one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. I feel like this meeting between Han and Chewie is absolutely perfect, and is even better than their meeting in Legends continuity. Talking about Chewbacca, I feel like he was great for the entire film and that there wasn't a single misstep with his character. Chewie has always been the heart of the Star Wars movies, and with this film is not an exception, as he continues to be just that. I also definitely love the relationship between Han and Chewie, and I think that the fact that they become close friends that quickly makes a total sense. Now on to one of my favorite characters in all of the film that I don't see a lot of people talking about, in Tobias Beckett. I think Woody Harrelson does a really great job here as Beckett, and it makes sense that Han would look at him at first as sort of a mentor. However, he's also kind of the opposite of Han, as at the end he's always going to make the wrong decision and not the right one. This was also something else that I loved about the film, specifically at the end where Qi'ra tells Han that he's the good guy. This is true even though Han wouldn't like to admit it. Han likes to think of himself as a bad person, where as we learn in the original trilogy, he really isn't. Beckett and Han are very similar, but at the end of the day, Han will always make the right decision, while Beckett will always make the wrong one. Some of the gunplay with Beckett was also some of my favorite parts in all of the film, as he is clearly extremely talented. The nod with Beckett killing Aurra Sing honestly got me very excited in the movie theater, as that's a nod to hardcore Star Wars fans of the Clone Wars. There were also other name drops that got me very excited, like Bossk, although Boba Fett was strangely absent even by name. There are also hints in the film such as Jabba, especially towards the end, which I'm excited to see in a potential sequel, which I do want. I'm interested to see more from the character of Beckett, and I also buy his friendship with Han blooming as quickly as it did. Beckett is a character that Han Solo would have become if he had never joined the rebellion, which I think is a phenomenal touch to the film and a huge strike in its favor. The first major action sequence in the film with Han as an Imperial as a mud trooper was also phenomenal, as I like to see them in the trenches and see more of the lower class Imperials. Another great action sequence in the film was with the train, and during the heist sequence, as Enfys Nest was definitely the standout during the sequence. The train battle is probably my favorite action sequence in the entire film, to be honest. As Enfys Nest fought Beckett, I had a smile on my face the entire time. The idea of this extremely skilled teenager who is also the start of a rebellion is an idea that I absolutely love, and something that I want to see explored in series like Star Wars TV shows. I feel like a series following Enfys and her crew would be absolutely spectacular. With that said, the character is not developed very much at all. I also didn't really like her theme in the film, and I found it a little bit distracting at moments. As far as her combat though, some of my favorite parts of the whole film, and I wish there was more of her. The switch that Enfys isn't the antagonist is also a touch that I really liked, as it adds a whole lot more to her, and I was getting a lot of vibes such as Mandalore with Enfys. I also was seeing a lot of Revan in her strangely, as she wore the mask as a symbol of hope. I want to see more with this character, but I feel like her story would be best told in a TV series. Now let's talk about Lando. I agree with the common consensus here that Lando Calrissian is a definite standout in the film. He's charming and charismatic while also a little bit creepy. I can definitely tell that this is the same character that we encounter in Empire Strikes Back, and I think that Donald Glover does the best acting job in the film. I want to see more of Lando, but not in his own film, as I think a solo sequel should be greenlit. I like these characters, there's just a far better story to tell here, which I do think is set up by the end of this film. Now on to one of my least favorite characters from the film in the droid L3. Although at first she was pretty entertaining, at the end she was a little bit annoying. With that said, I do like Lando's reaction to her death, but that is more for Lando than L3. L3 herself I didn't think added a lot to the film, and at parts took me out of it. I also would have liked to spend more time on the Millennium Falcon, as I feel like that was a part that is heavily featured in advertisement, but the actual ship isn't in the movie that much. The addition with L3 becoming a part of the Millennium Falcon though is another great one, as that makes sense as to why C-3PO says that the dialect of the Falcon is extremely strange. The sequence in the film where they get the hyperfuel was honestly a low point for me. I was having a hard time seeing the action in the movie theater and thought that it was all a little bit too jumbled. I do like the name drop by Kira that she used the fighting style of Teräs Käsi, which is something that Maul used, but other than that, there wasn't really a highlight for me. Chewbacca helping out the other Wookiees was interesting, but the other Wookiees' design was a little bit off. In Revenge of the Sith, the Wookiees looked like Wookiees. Here, they look like Bigfoot, which Chewie does to some extent, but you can clearly tell he has his own unique design. The Kessel Run itself that follows this though is another highlight of the film. It was not at all what I expected, and the way they pull it off is a great touch. The idea that they have to go through this mist and encounter all of these different types of creatures is not at all what I expected for the Kessel Run, but that's a good thing. This is also where the Empire makes one of its briefest appearances in the movie, which I wish there was more of the Empire, but I understand why there wasn't. This is also where we get our only glimpse of a ship battle in the film, which I wish there was more of. I was looking forward to seeing an early version of the Falcon flying around fighting TIE fighters, but we don't really get that. Again, something that could be used in a sequel for the Solo film. The final confrontation in the film with Dryden Voss and Beckett was on a small scale, but strangely something that I really enjoyed. In Star Wars, we're used to these huge finales, but having this smaller, more personal one was a great touch to the Solo story. The betrayal of Beckett was predictable, but also played very well. The motivations here make absolutely perfect sense, and strangely I wasn't expecting to like Dryden Voss as much as I did, but I thought he made for a great villain, although his screen time is scarce. Dryden was interesting, and there's a lot of stuff in his office that hardcore fans can pick apart, which of course I will be making several videos on. Dryden is a type of villain that I wish wasn't killed off, as I wanted to learn more from him, and wish that Dryden, Kira, and Maul could all team up in the sequel for Solo. The switcheroo that Han pulls here is also another great moment in the film, as the hyperfuel is actually real. The idea that Dryden Voss has the upper hand for a moment, but then it's revealed that Han does, was one of my my favorite parts. This is also one of the moments where it was absolutely Han Solo on screen, as Alden Ehrenreich brings it home. Han then going after Beckett, Chewie, and the hyperfuel was a great moment, as Beckett begins to monologue, but Han shoots him right in the chest, as he always shot first. This is a great ending to the character of Beckett, and a great ending to the film entirely. However, of course, there's one major part of the movie we need to discuss. As Han leaves Dryden's yacht, Kira contacts her true boss, the leader of the Crimson Dawn, who is revealed as Maul. As with a lot of people, this was my absolutely favorite moment in the movie, and the favorite moment according to the rest of my audience as well. Maul looks phenomenal here, and the addition of Sam Witwer's voice, as well as being played by Ray Park, went off without a hitch. I was worried that the mannerisms of Maul would be somewhat different, but they absolutely pulled it off, and this lines up perfectly with his Rebels depiction. This was one of the greatest cameos and twists in a Star Wars film we have ever seen. I just wish more people would be experiencing it as Solo is in theaters. This was also a moment that I didn't expect after Maul was killed off in Rebels, as I never expected to see him again on the big screen. He's played perfectly, and this moment is perfect, as everyone was instantly excited as his hologram appeared. The double-bladed lightsaber, which is his Rebels lightsaber, is also a phenomenal touch for hardcore fans that know exactly what's going on. In many respects, Solo is a film that was made for the hardcore fan. It has a lot of nods to EU stuff that is now of course canon thanks to the film, with Maul of course being the biggest of all of them, and the fact that he has survived. As people that only watched the movies stared in utter shock around me, I couldn't help but smile, as I knew exactly what was going on. This also perfectly sets us up for a sequel, and I hope that Maul plays a much larger role in it, as I feel like that is something that would definitely bring audiences to the theater. In the end though, for Solo and me, I'm mostly positive on it, as I like the film, I just didn't think it's among the best of the Star Wars movies. Being completely honest, my favorite aspects of Star Wars have always been the mystical side of the Force. This is a part of Star Wars that I love, but it's absolutely not my favorite part of the universe. Solo was better than I expected, but not as good as we deserve. The characters are well realized and established, although I didn't see Han Solo all of the time in Alden Ehrenreich. For me, the story was forgettable, but the characters weren't. This is a good movie, but it is not a great movie. In the end, I'm mostly positive on Solo, and I'm absolutely glad I got to be there opening day. Again, if you're on the fence, absolutely go see the film, as I don't think you'll be disappointed. Just know that this isn't some masterpiece. I did walk out of Solo though, experiencing something that I didn't expect, and that is that I'm hugely excited for a sequel to this movie. This movie is the perfect setup for the great Han Solo movie that we deserve, with established characters now and more characters to come, such as Maul and Jabba. I hope that one day we get to see the sequel, but for now, I'm not going to hold my breath. But I would love to hear what you guys thought about Han Solo, and I apologize if some of my thoughts seemed a little bit jumbled. As I said, I'm not so used to going off the cuff. However, if you guys liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you left a like and also told me what you guys thought in the comments below. What did you guys think of Solo, and do you think that we will be getting a sequel, and do you even want a sequel? As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support on the YouTube channel. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.